Welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of Fair Territory. I'm Ken Rosenthal here with Alanna Rizzo. Alanna, the postseason is on, and the games are hot. We have three teams that have advanced already, the Padres, the Royals, and Tigers, and we've got an exciting Game 3 between the Brewers and Mets to come.
Hi, Ken. Always great to be with you. For everybody listening and watching right now, don't forget to load up the questions in the chat for Grillin Ken. That's coming up momentarily. But before we get into that, Ken, let's get into the lead. And we were talking earlier about how it seems like wild card means sweep. Only one Game 3 out of the 4 series.
That's right. And if you go back the entire 3-year history of this particular innovation, 10 of the 12 series have ended in sweeps. And Alanna, it's curious to me. I don't know that it's a big enough sample size for any of us to draw conclusions, but it almost seems like a team that gets down 1-0 maybe is in a little bit of a panic mode in Game 2, understandably so. And that is perhaps the reason why we have seen one sweep after another. But it is quite weird that this keeps happening. The Orioles go out at home. The Padres win at home, but look what the Tigers did to the Astros at Minute Maid Park. The Astros' reign of 7 straight American League Championship Series appearances is over, and it was done in by a team that sold at the trade deadline, a team that has only one player on its playoff roster with postseason experience. That's Matt Vierling.
How about this, Ken? When I was looking at this earlier today, if you took all of the guys that were in the game yesterday for the Detroit Tigers, all of them that played, their collective payroll is less than what Josh Hader made this year. Josh Hader made $19.5 million. Collectively, the Tigers that played in the game make less than he did. And how about the narrative, too? Baseball's such a beautiful thing. And if you think that you know what's going on, just watch a postseason game. Because the reign of terror that started by the Houston Astros going to the ALCS was started by A.J. Hinch, of course, when he was the manager of the Astros back in the day. It also ended their reign of terror at the hands of A.J. Hinch's Tigers, who knocked them out of that wild card round. So very strange thing. Now, that is a beginning of a new era for the Detroit Tigers. Let's talk about the end of eras, perhaps, for several players.
Right, and it's really interesting that these players that we're going to discuss are free agents. Conceivably, they could go back to their teams, of course, but I would say the odds are against any of them returning to their present clubs. We're starting with Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros. He might be the most interesting case of the players I'm going to mention here, Alanna, because he is a guy that is beloved in that room. And Jose Altuve, in particular, has been outspoken about the need for the Astros to keep Bregman. You see his message yesterday on X, thank you, Houston. So Bregman is going to be one to watch because, frankly, the Astros need him. Max Fried with the Atlanta Braves. Now, he's had injury issues the last few years. Yesterday or last night did not end great for him, of course. Max Fried has been a wonderful pitcher. And what he did in the 2021 World Series to clinch it can never be forgotten and will never be forgotten in Atlanta. But I would not be surprised to see him move on. And then there are the Baltimore Orioles, the team that suffered a humiliating defeat at the hands of Kansas City at Camden Yards. Both Corbin Burnes and Anthony Santander are free agents to be. Their ownership has changed. David Rubenstein in the new group, he is full of money, as many of these owners are. And it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this because the Orioles are an extreme disappointment. And Britt Giroli wrote a great column in The Athletic today saying that what they've accomplished is great as an organization. They've turned it around, but they haven't gone far enough. And they've had 2 straight deadlines where, frankly, General Manager Mike Elias did not deliver what was necessary, and it hurt them. Injuries also hurt them. They had a ton of starting pitching on the injured list. And, of course, go back to Felix Bautista. We get all that. But it's the offense that was so disappointing. 1 run in 2 games against Kansas City.
Yeah, thanks to Cedric Mullins on that home run. Anthony Santander had 44 home runs over the course of the season. He may not be back. Mike Elias did say earlier today that Hyde will return for the 2025 season. So we do know that so far. And I'm with you on Alex Bregman. He's such a huge piece of that core, that puzzle. But there is a Game 3, Ken, in the National League wild card. When you look at the New York Mets and the Milwaukee Brewers, they each have a game apiece. Jackson Chourio Rosario has now tied Babe Ruth as the only guy to ever have 2 go-ahead home runs in the postseason. So they live to play another day. What's your takeaway so far from the first 2 games?
It's been a really exciting series, and Churio's emergence, which really started around June 1st, kind of peaked yesterday. 2 opposite field home runs. That was amazing to see. Now, game 3 is going to be fascinating. The pitching matchup is essentially what it was last Saturday in that game we had on Fox. It's Quintana, who lasted 4 1/3 innings in that game, gave up 2 runs against Tobias Myers, one of the great stories of the season. This cat was 1-15 with an ERA of nearly 8 at AAA 2 years ago. He was number 80 in spring training, a non-roster invitee, one of the first Brewers cut, and yet here he is starting an elimination game for Milwaukee. Against the Mets last Saturday, he was brilliant. He was the bulk guy, pitched 4 innings, 5 strikeouts, no runs allowed. So we'll see what happens today. It's going to be a thrilling game, no question, because of the stakes here. And the Mets have come so far, so have the Brewers. And really, there is a lot at stake here, and yet both teams have kind of captured their fan base's fancies.
And it's funny, too, because if you look at these comeback kids, if you will, the New York Mets are 3rd best as far as come-from-behind victories, and the Milwaukee Brewers are tied for 4th in terms of come-from-behind victories. And they've both of the games of this series, they've each had to come from behind. And as you mentioned, Myers going up against Quintana. It'd be interesting to see how Game 3 plays out. That one is tonight, 7:08 Eastern, first pitch from American Family Field, rather. All right, we're moving forward now. We know who the New York Yankees are going to face when it comes to the ALDS. And let's give it up to the AL Central. 3 teams in that AL Central into the postseason. But Ken, to your point, you had an article, we're working on an article for The Athletic that the Yankees, my friend, have no excuses, in your opinion.
Yes, I published that this morning. And before I even get into the Yankees, let me address the fans of the AL Central teams who are commenting and saying I was condescending and arrogant. No, stop it. Actually, the article is respectful to those teams, as it should be, because they've all done great. And the point of this is, here are the Yankees. Their boogeymen, the Houston Astros, are out. The team that has been their nemesis in the American League East the last couple of years, the Orioles, they're out too. So for the Yankees, there is a path here. There is a better path than they could have imagined at the start of the postseason. And it's not disrespectful to the Royals, the Guardians, and the Tigers. It's simply reality. If you're a Yankee fan, or if you're a member of the Yankee front office, even if you're sitting in the Yankee clubhouse, you've got to be thinking right now, man, we need to seize the moment. And that is what the column says. That is all it says. And again, when you spend $300 million on payroll, and when the teams you're facing all are around $100 million, we all know that things can turn topsy-turvy in the postseason, and big money doesn't always win. But you know what? There are no excuses. The Yankees need to win this next series, and frankly, they need to win the American League.
Yeah, they need to get to the World Series, I think, or it's going to be a waste. And if you look at the record, Ken, for the New York Yankees over the course of the season against the Central, they're 24-7. So they've done what they needed to do against teams in the AL Central. So to your point, no excuses, New York. Ken Rosenthal does not want to hear it. Load up your questions for Grillin Ken as we move further towards that here in fair territory. I just think that, when you think about the Yankees, the American League, it seems like is so much easier to navigate, Ken, because if you look at the Padres and the Dodgers series, that's going to be a scary series, right? That's a very scary series. And Manny Machado said it yesterday. Oh, this is what everybody wants. But that frightens me a lot more than having to play, no disrespect to the Central, but to your point, I think the Yankees have a much clearer picture than anybody in the NL does.
Yes, because their principal rival is out. The Astros are the team that obviously beat the Yankees in 17, 19, and 22. I know 17 was tainted. Can't ignore that, but it was a reality that they've lost 3 American League Championship Series to that team, the Houston Astros. So the Dodgers, best record in baseball, but they're facing perhaps the hottest team in baseball, San Diego. And in the other NL bracket, we're going to have the Phillies, who were the second best team in the National League this year, a team that, like the Padres, is really deep in every area. So it would appear that, yes, it's going to be a tougher road in the National League. At the same time, it's the playoffs. Things happen. I don't know many people at all that predicted the Tigers were going to beat the Houston Astros. And one more note on the Tigers, Alanna. I was glad you made that point about payroll because they're two highest paid guys. Neither of them is on or was on the Division Series roster. Javi Baez and Kenta Maeda, also part of the amazing Tigers story.
That's incredible. Yeah, that pitching chaos is working, and obviously having Tarek Skubal, it doesn't hurt. Also, the Tigers' momentum is absolutely scary. We'll continue to load up those questions, guys, for Grillin Ken. Before we get to Grillin Ken, we're going to be right back after a quick word from AJ Pierzynski, Scott Braun, and Eric Kratz on Huel.
We get it. Mornings are nuts. No time for breakfast, but you need to get your day started right.
What if a delicious, nutritious meal could be ready in seconds? Support for Foul Territory is brought to you by Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. With over 400 million meals sold worldwide, Huel is trusted by millions of people looking to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. Try it for yourself with this exclusive FT offer. 15% off with the code FOUL at Huel.com.
You know we're all about saving time, but we get hangry, like a lot. I recently fell in love with the Huel Ultimate Super Greens Powder, which is a perfect blend of 91 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. I also love their complete nutrition bars, and those hot and savory pouches are fire too.
FT fam, give it a shot. Get 15% off with the code FOUL at HUEL.com. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters.
All right. Thank you so much, Huel. We appreciate you being here on Fair Territory. Time now for Grillin Ken, and we're getting some questions from our friend Rob Buck Ken. The first question is involving the Detroit Tigers. He wants to know, is Detroit this year's Arizona?
Could be. Now, the difference between Detroit and Arizona is that Arizona had a top two in their rotation of Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and Brandon Pfaadt emerging at that point that made them a little bit different than what the Tigers are now. What the Tigers are now is, as I've written, Tarek Skubal and pitching chaos and make them all famous. Make all the other pitchers famous. So I don't see Detroit in quite the same light, but the point that the questioner is making is a valid one. There are examples throughout recent baseball history of wild card teams getting hot and rolling. The Tigers are not just getting hot, they've been hot for 2 months. And they do it in an unusual way that is difficult for teams to deal with. And that is something that we've seen come to the fore. Can it continue against the Guardians? I think it actually can. They are a team that played the Guardians evenly this year. I believe the Guardians were 7-6 against them, or maybe it was 6-7. But certainly it's not out of their capability. They know the Guardians well. I don't necessarily see them as underdogs or big underdogs in this series.
When you look at AJ Hinch, of course, when it ends up being that they advance in the series, it looks like everything that he's doing makes sense, right? He's pushing all the right buttons, making all the right moves. A lot of people say he's one of the best postseason managers in the game. How do you feel about that? When you've been around this game for a really long time. I mean, do you like the way that he goes about it?
No question. There's no doubt that he is one of the best managers in the game. And Alanna, a lot of people believe that he should be manager of the year for what he has done with this team because, remember, they sold at the deadline and here they are. I don't know that I would give him manager of the year. Stephen Vogt, to me, with the Guardians, did it over a full season. But at the same time, the way A.J. Hinch has manipulated his pitching staff with a bunch of guys that, outside of Detroit, I don't know that fans could name their bullpen or name 3 guys in their bullpen. It's really impressive. And it's hard to do this. It is really difficult to keep bullpenning and keep your staff intact, keep these guys healthy, keep them going. And he's doing it, and he's doing it at an extremely high level, and kudos to him.
Be honest, when Foley comes out of the bullpen and takes the ball for Detroit, do you think of Axel Foley? Because that's what I think of. I mean, Axel Foley, he's from Detroit. Like that to me, it's like they're twins, right? All right, Rob Buck has another question about the St. Louis Cardinals, kind of the change of the guard there, Ken. Wanting to know, now that Chaim Bloom is taking over the Cardinals, obviously John Mozeliak kind of transitioning that role to Chaim Bloom, what does it mean? Is it a complete rebuild, meaning perhaps Arenado, Goldie, Miles Michaelis, Gray, Sonny Gray, are they out?
I don't know that it's a complete rebuild. I wouldn't call it that. But they have been public this week after what Katie Wu published in The Athletic about their possible changes, about what they're going to do. And what they're going to do is place a greater emphasis on player development. That is where they know they are lacking, and that is where they know they need to improve. Now, they've already basically parted ways with Goldschmidt, at least according to Katie Wu. She says that's not going to happen. He's not going to return. I imagine in the state that they're in, they will listen on guys like Arenado and Gray. Whether they end up trading them remains to be seen. But if you are the Cardinals and you're in this position, Goldie's gone, why wouldn't you listen on those guys and why wouldn't you move them? It seems to me they're resetting their organization, and those moves at this stage would seem kind of logical for them.
This is not a question from Rob. It's a question from me to you regarding the Cardinals. Are you surprised perhaps that Oliver Marmol is still there and that they didn't entertain perhaps having Skip Schumacher manage that team since Skip had left Miami?
It's a good question, Alanna. I'm a little bit surprised in one sense because Skip is available, former Cardinal, but I'm not surprised in the sense that they gave Marmol an extension through 2026 back in spring training. And he's a guy they believe can be a good manager for the kind of team that they figure to be in the next couple of years, a younger, rebuilding type team. So he'll get the chance. Now, once Bloom takes over after the coming season, he will have the ability to choose his own manager. But at the same time, they always value their stability, St. Louis does. And they're not going to give up on a guy that they believe in, Oliver Marmol, just yet.
All right. Just that Cardinal way. Ask Mike Schilt with the San Diego Padres about that. All right. CJ Sizemore, Ken Rosenthal, needs some help. Talking some folks off the ledge there in Baltimore. Ken is an Orioles fan. I don't know what to do from here. My patience is wearing very thin, starting to think we're cursed. Come on, you're not the Cubs. What can I look forward to this offseason? Because I am hopeless. Oh, my goodness.
You're not hopeless, CJ. Get off the ledge. They're not cursed. These things happen for a reason. And I would encourage you to read Britt Giroli today because I thought she summed it up well. She said it wasn't one thing. It wasn't the injuries alone. It wasn't the deadline alone. It wasn't the offensive approach alone. It was a combination of all of these things. Now, where they failed at the deadline, in my opinion, was twofold. They needed a veteran bat, and they needed someone to kind of stabilize the lineup and lead these kids. And people talk sometimes about how this stuff can be overrated. It's not overrated, okay? It's real. Now, I know the Tigers are doing this with a bunch of kids. Kudos to them, but the idea of stability and presence and all of that, ask the Royals with the guys that they've brought in, it does matter. Now, the other move at the deadline that was absolutely crushing to me was the Trevor Rogers trade. They traded two pretty well thought of hitters. The first one was Connor Norby, and the other was Stowers. And these two guys, maybe they could have brought you one of the relievers that was out there. Maybe a Jason Adam or a Tanner Scott or a Lucas Ursay. They could have formed the foundation of that package. In the end, the offense is what doomed the Orioles, not the bullpen. But it just seemed to me that they made a lot of moves at the deadline. They brought in Austin Slater. They brought in Eloy Jimenez, this, that, and the other thing. But outside of Eflin, nothing really worked out.
Yeah, and I still don't understand why they pulled Eflin as early as they did. All right, there's some questions as far as this big NLDS is concerned between the Dodgers and the Padres. Casey wants to know this. What's the bigger headline for the Dodgers? Whether Mookie finally delivers this year or Ohtani's first postseason. Lots of fans upset Mookie's interviewing Tatis Jr. on the podcast and going on Jimmy Kimmel. I think we're worried about the wrong things, Casey.
I would say we're worried about the wrong things. And the biggest thing, the biggest storyline with the Dodgers is Ohtani. It's his first postseason. But the secondary storyline to me is not Mookie. It's how the heck they are going to get through this series with the pitching being the way it is. Flaherty, velocity down the last two starts. Yamamoto, still really building up to what he should be. And then Landon Knack, Walker Buehler, whatever else they're going to do. It's going to be difficult for Dave Roberts to get to 27 outs. He's got a good bullpen. Got a lot of different weapons there. But Alanna, you're much more well-versed on the Dodgers than I am. What do you think?
I'm worried about the starting pitching. Ken, I have been the entire season. Landon Knack was not on my bingo card heading into the postseason. You don't know what you're going to get, obviously, from Yamamoto. How long can he go into the game? Jack Flaherty's been a consistent spot there. Thank you, Detroit, for that. And again, Walker Buehler coming off his second Tommy John. He's been very erratic and up and down all season. That concerns me. Freddie's foot concerns me. guys getting cold at the wrong time concerns me. And the Padres are incredibly dangerous. Now, they don't have Joe Musgrove, looks like, obviously, for the DS, at least early on. So that's, I guess, a benefit to the Dodgers. But I am incredibly concerned because I do think the Padres are stronger. I think they're more complete of a team, and I think they have a better overall roster than the Los Angeles Dodgers do. So we'll see what happens there. All right, time now to move on from Grillin Ken to Dude and Dork. This is an opportunity for Ken and I to brag on a folk or an organization and then kind of question some other decisions of the week. Ken, who's your dude?
My dude is actually 3 different teams. The
Ooh.
Tigers, the Royals, the Guardians, the AL Central. We have disparaged this division over the years. Look at these dudes celebrating. We have criticized them. We have mocked them even for being in the same division as the White Sox and beating up on the White Sox, though the Guardians really didn't do that. But good for all of these teams. The Royals for knocking off the Orioles, the Tigers for knocking off the Astros, and the Guardians for having the second best record in the American League, getting the bye in the first round. These teams, in addition to the Minnesota Twins, by the way, who were above 500, have proven to be legitimate contending type clubs. And again, kudos to all of them. I love the way the Royals went about it in particular, being so aggressive in free agency. The Tigers and the Guardians were kind of not that aggressive, but yet here they are. And in the Tigers case, good young players, a manager who knows how to use them. And in the Guardians case, a manager who took over for a legend and really instituted his own form of leadership and winning. And my gosh, when you've got Jose Ramirez on the Guardians, when you've got Bobby Witt Jr. on the Royals, you've got some pretty special players in this division as well.
Yeah, it's great. I love to see it. Bobby Witt Jr. is a blast, of course, and he's just a man among boys when it comes to those certain things. All right, my dude of the week is Jackson Chourio. I mean, obviously, we've made a lot about Jackson Merrill probably getting Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Paul Skeens is very much in that conversation. But when you can be in a conversation as the only person to tie Babe Ruth in anything, that's pretty special, let alone in a postseason. 2 go-ahead home runs in the postseason. Only the great Bambino has done that. So congratulations to Jackson Chourio, who doesn't even turn 21 until March of 2025, which makes me feel ancient, which is awesome. All right, how about your dork of the week, Ken?
My dork of the week, I just published a story about this. It's the Miami Marlins. Since mid-August. Oh, here we go. Dork of the week, the John Fisher dork of the week. Look at that. Special honor goes to the Marlins this week. And the reason I am awarding them this special honor is, as I wrote this morning, since mid-August, they have let go of more than 70 employees, more than 70, including their entire coaching staff this week, 2 of whom were invited back pending the hiring of the next manager. Now, there is always turnover whenever a new head of baseball operations takes over, and Peter Bendix just took over last November. We all understand that. Everyone in the game understands that. This, though, is beyond a normal set of circumstances, a normal turnover that you might see. And I remember, Alanna, when I first became a baseball writer in the late 80s, Roland Hemond took over as general manager of the Orioles. They had a horrible farm system. They were a complete mess. And he said, you know what? There are some good people here. I just have to find out who they are. I'm not going to fire everybody. Now, I know Bendix has taken a year, but a lot of the great general managers, Pat Gillick was another one. Buster Olney pointed this out on X yesterday. They don't do this. What they do is they find out who they can keep and who really belongs, and they kind of just push the organization forward instead of gutting it. This is a gutting.
And not only that, Ken, but some of the people that they let go, in my understanding, have nothing to do with the performance on the field. This is not things that are happening on the field as that relate to wins and losses. I mean, you're just cutting to cut and put your
traveling secretary,
on.
a home clubhouse manager.
I mean, there's just a lot of things that are very disappointing about the way that that went down. All right, we do have a super chat, so let's get into that before I get into my dork of the week. If we can bring that up, Derek and Jimmy, that would be great. Or if we want to do it after dork, that we can do that too. So my dork of the week is an organization. And I don't know who made this decision in the organization, but it's ridiculous. The San Diego Padres limiting who can buy their tickets to postseason games. You are only allowed to purchase tickets if you are a resident of San Diego County, Southern Orange County, Western Arizona, Las Vegas, and the surrounding area, and all of Baja California. Residency will be based on credit card billing address. So I ask you this, Ken. What if you're a San Diego Padres fan and you live in LA County and your billing address goes to an LA County address and you can't buy tickets to see your San Diego Padres because the Padres are too afraid to have Petco Park filled with Dodgers fans? This is not the first time that they did this. That to me is just ridiculous. Are you scared of your stadium being taken over by Dodgers fans? There's a lot of Padres fans in LA County.
Alanna, here's what that fan in LA should do. Call a friend in San Diego and go about it that way. And this goes back for me, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, Bruce Springsteen concert in North Carolina. I wanted to go to that concert for whatever reason. And I knew nobody in North Carolina. I found a woman who was in college with me. I didn't even know her. I said, listen, I need your address. I need you to pick up these tickets for me. And we got it done. Get it done. Get creative. And if you're a Dodger fan, get inside that stadium too.
I mean, come on. That's just stupid. Are you nervous, San Diego? Are you nervous? All right. Anyway. All right.
I get it. But at the same time, there are ways to get around this thing.
No, of course
People
there is.
are creative with tickets. They will
Sure.
get creative here.
Absolutely. And not for nothing. If I'm a San Diego fan, I'm like, all right, I'm going to buy these up and then sell them to Dodger fans, make some money on the open market. But, that's just the entrepreneurial spirit for me. All right. Super chat next. Let's bring that up, guys, if you don't mind. All right, here we go. Thank you, Daniel Rothenberg, for being a part of us today. We appreciate you. Do you like the expanded playoff system, Ken? Only one series is going to 3 games. You were talking about this earlier. Do not know if that is good or bad, just fact.
Daniel, I'm going to reserve judgment, and I'll tell you why. I want to see how the division series plays out because we've seen a lot of upsets in the division series of the teams that got byes in recent seasons. And that, to me, is not healthy for the sport. That diminishes the 162. Mm-hmm. And if, again, we see this kind of pattern in the division series this year, then I would think it's time to take a look at whether this is working as intended or whether it's time to penalize the wildcard team survivors or wildcard round survivors even more.
It's funny, too, because this has nothing to do with the expanded series as far as the amount of playoff teams go. But, the last couple of years, if you win the division, then there's always that, do we want the layoff or do we want to keep playing? Atlanta had said, we had too much time off. And they didn't have any time off and they still got bounced. That could be because of injury, that type of thing. But you never know. It's whoever's playing at the best at the right time and who's the healthiest. All right, let's hear from our friends at BetMGM. We always appreciate them being with Ken and Fair Territory, of course. Check out the new offer from BetMGM called the Blue Pen Bullpen Jackpot. BetMGM Sportsbook account holders who opt in to the promotion and place a straight bet of at least $10 on their choice of any MLB player to hit a home run will win a share of a daily $50,000. Holy moly. BetMGM Bullpen Jackpot. If the player they wagered on hits a home run that lands in an MLB team bullpen. I love this. Prizing will be paid out in bonus bets that expire in 7 days. Gambling problem or concern, there is help. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right. I want to thank everyone for their questions today, for watching, for listening. You know where to find us every Monday and Thursday, although next week it's going to be Tuesday. We are Fair Territory, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Like us, subscribe to us. And Alanna, I'll be headed to LA tomorrow for the Dodgers-Padres series.
That is going to be such a good series. As Manny Machado said, this is what everybody wanted. I don't know that I did as a Dodger fan, but here it is. Again, as you mentioned, Fair Territory is coming up next on Tuesday. We are getting to Foul Territory right now. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern, myself and Clint Pasillas on Dodgers Territory. Thanks for being on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal. Talk to you later.